Knives Out is regarded as one of the rarest and most difficult achievements in the entire Resident Evil franchise, requiring you to beat the entire game only using a knife. And while you could use the Karambit or Sith Lord lightsaber, turning the game into an Eastern European version of Wolverine, combining this achievement with Village of Shadows difficulty should already pose a substantial challenge. But what if we made this run psychologically intolerable? Dashing Dad and Don't Trust That Snake Oil are two additional achievements that should raise the sodium levels in my body high enough to send me straight into cardiac arrest, requiring us to speedrun the game in under 3 hours and restricting us to only 4 healing items, turning this into, let's just say, a quadfecta of misery. Meet Ethan Winters, BDSM enjoyer and devoted family man, who recently immigrated to Romania with his wife Mia and their newborn daughter Rose. Life seemed good, and they could finally enjoy some quality time away from all the gun violence in the US. Well, that's just great. To add to this shit show of a situation, none other than Chris Redfield is kidnapping our daughter. Why? What the hell is going on? To make things worse, they forgot to take Rose's autism medication she needed after her vaccination, leaving her with only 3 hours before she dies an excruciating death. Fortunately, the microchip inside of her located her in a village only a few kilometers away. With the clock ticking, we head out. The state of this village was deplorable, so Ethan felt right at home as he arrived at Wish.com Hogwarts. With Europe having sensible gun control laws, Ethan could only bring his butter knife, a memo Grandpa here didn't get, so he gets promptly executed by the local police force. For our transgression of carrying a firearm, we lose our precious masturbating fingers, and now we stand face to face with our first enemy. However, by just running past him and grabbing the bolt cutters, he decides his job is done and runs off.
Have a great time.
Well, that was easy. If this keeps up, we're going to be done in no time. But no, that was not going to happen. Just across the street, we get assaulted by this homeless crack addict, sending us back to our last checkpoint in seconds. Here's where I realized that Ethan's butter knife does absolutely no damage. And with a single hit of a Lycan putting us on life support, our death was imminent. Fighting this guy head on in here seemed impossible. And not even 5 minutes into the run, I was already regretting my decision. But 5 resets later, something happened. Our abuser somehow got stuck on the stairs, giving us the opportunity to stab him in the face. Unfortunately though, he managed to get unstuck, tearing us a new asshole. But this was progress. We just need him to get stuck there long enough to kill him. With resets flowing like bodily fluids on Epstein's Island, it was tough. But finally, it happened. And 30 stabs later, we defeat our first enemy. But this was only the start. Now the true challenge begins. Angered by the murder of their colleague, the whole village population comes rushing after us. After some experimentation, I came up with a plan. Or more like the concept of one. By hiding in the basement until a big guy shows up, we can run down the timer. And if we don't immediately get our spine realigned, we can make it to the house near the gate, where we can hide until they break down the door, escaping via the roof. To make it back to the house we started in. By repeating this loop a couple of times, we finally make it to bingo time, ending the siege and escaping just barely. And after 2 hours, we finally survived the first 10 minutes of the game. Taking a stroll around the village, we meet the local crazy lady who mumbles something about Rose's right ass cheek being inside of the castle. We find a creepy plate, help a local family find their way back home, see the consequences of rampant alcoholism in Europe, ending with Ethan's replacement for his masturbating fingers dying in a fire. We grab the second stone plate, watch on as the local cult leader snaps some poor farmer's spine, and finally head to Hogwarts, where we meet Toph's big brother, who makes us join the local cult meetup. Here we get introduced to Jeff Dunham if he did heroin, Lady,
Supersize bitch,
and a walking advertisement of what happens when you drink during pregnancy, led by Mother Miranda, Queen of the Rejects. Our initiation ritual, running away from an army of feral ghouls, with our hands cuffed. After getting a kiss from our big friend from earlier, Ethan uses his moldy superhuman strength to withstand this death trap, and finally we can actually head towards the castle. Here we meet an old friend who may have let himself go a bit too much after his stint in Spain, but he's the savior in our hour of need. He smuggled in some contraband, specifically the karambit knife, giving us a more than needed boost in firepower, or in this case, stabbing power. And before anyone asks, unfortunately it is literally impossible to beat the game with the basic knife within our allotted time limit. And using the Sith Lord lightsaber seemed a bit too OP, and I couldn't be asked to actually play mercenaries. So yeah, karambit it is. And also someone way more talented and presumably way sexier than myself already did this challenge. So the inside of the castle stands in stark contrast to the village, as this place is gorgeous. Except for the decor, that shit was just odd.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
There are 4 masks hidden throughout the castle that we need to find to open the grand door. But before we could even try to locate them, we get greeted by our hosts, who seem to share Ethan's enjoyment of a kinky pastime. Lady D joins the fun and slurps us up unlike anything we've ever experienced. After reawakening from our slumber, we remember why we came here in the first place, to find Rose. So we unhung ourselves, put on some moisturizer and explored the castle. After inserting someone's eye into a door, we get greeted by Bella and her flies, hinting at her showering less than the average guy at an anime convention. But playtime was over, so we break down the wall and escape into the wine cellar, run past a congregation of rejects, but Bella caught up to us with only one thing on her mind.
Man blood.
This fight was an absolute disaster. I got my dick ripped off so many times I thought it might have happened in real life. There were 2 reasons making this fight absolute hell. These assholes that spawn in on Village of Shadows. Fighting Bella by herself wouldn't be too bad, but having these 2 tearing my asshole open while Bella bashes her face in an arena smaller than my toilet really tested my patience. I tried over and over again, but to no avail. Winning this fight without using any healing items seemed impossible. I did identify a win condition though. We have to kill our 2 rear abusers first, but that was easier said than done. However, eventually something strange happened. While we were contemplating our life choices, Bella's AI shut down, giving us free rein to stab her in the face. God was smiling upon us after all. At least that's what I thought, as she regained consciousness and we got sent straight to the Shadow Realm. I tried replicating this countless times, but no matter what I tried, it never happened again. But finally, we managed to take out the first guy quickly, and even though we get assaulted immediately, we use up our first of 4 heals, slice the second goober to pieces, and finally, for the first time, it was just us versus Bella. Our chance to finally win. By luring her around the arena, we get plenty of opportunity to bash her head in. And even though my incompetence almost cost us this victory, Bella finally crumbles to dust. And after 3 excruciating hours, we were released from this nightmare. As a reward, we get a taste of the house specialty, grab the courtyard key upstairs, and head to Lady D's private chambers, where we drain her wine jacuzzi, leading us to the most unsanitary wine cellar I have ever seen. Taking the elevator up, we steal Lady D's key and get a good whiff of her personal belongings. Asking her if she'd mind using our face as a chair might have been a bit too much, as we get slammed through the floor face first. Fortunately, we got off without any major injuries. With our second masturbator now irreparably damaged, we give her the slip, grab our severed hand, and barely make it past her chambermaid, finally grabbing the first of 4 masks. As we escape via the elevator, Ethan glues his hand back on. You do realize we have public healthcare here, right, Ethan? On our search for the second mask, we drop the tune of My People, granting us access to the iron insignia key. And after another tense encounter with Lady D, we reach our second boss fight against Daniela. But for once, this fight was a complete cakewalk. By opening the ceiling window, we stun her, allowing us to deal massive amounts of damage, and for some reason, instead of fighting back, she runs off, giving us more opportunities to hit her. Repeating this a few times makes her crumble into dust, giving us access to the second mask. Returning back to the room where we first encountered Bella, we can unlock the back door, securing the third mask. But while we were trying to find a way out, we get ambushed by Cassandra. There is just one slight problem. Without any light, we have no way of damaging her. To even have a chance to win this fight, we need to blow a hole in the wall with a pipe bomb, which for some reason does not count against the Knives Out achievement. We have to be careful though, because hitting her would lock us out of getting the achievement. And it would be a shame having to replay most of the game by not realizing. Thank God that didn't happen. The good thing is the fight itself is fairly easy. We have plenty of space to run her around the arena, and after her spasm ends, we can give her a hair transplant, letting us escape, taking another whiff of the best ass in Romania, and off to the roof we go. But first it's time for a second exception to the knife-only rule, as it's literally impossible to hit most of these bells without using a gun. After wondering what kind of crack Capcom was smoking when they designed the rules for this achievement, we slid across the rooftop grabbing the final mask. We take the elevator back down into the castle, inserting all masks to open the door. However, instead of Rose, we just find Lady D's murdered husband. Enraged by us uncovering this scandal, she lifts us up, but with his British ancestry coursing through Ethan's veins, he stabs her with the conveniently placed dagger inside of the casket, transforming her into something truly monstrous. I preferred the before. After getting dropped off at the top of the tower, it was time to fight Lady D. And with 9,000 HP, this surely has to be the biggest challenge we've faced so far. But surprisingly, no. We might have died 1 or 10 times, but I discovered something which will help us massively for the rest of the run. Enemies in Resident Evil Village are insanely predictable, and that holds true even for bosses. Lady D only has 5 attacks. A charge attack that can be avoided by just standing close to the wall, at least if you do it properly. After the charge, you can run past her, getting 3 hits in. You just have to be careful to run far enough to not get squashed. It might have taken me more than 10 attempts. Her second attack is the short charge, which she rarely does. Then there's her turnaround slam that you can easily run under. For her dive attack, we just have to run around the corner, and when she sends out her flies, we hide inside one of the towers. So the plan was simple. When she lands, we pop out of the tower, get in a ton of damage from behind until she jumps off again. Then hide from the flies, avoid the charge attack, smack her a few times until she jumps off again, and repeat until she's dead. However, the margin of error here is tiny. A single mistake and we have to reset, as a single hit puts us in a danger zone, making us way too slow to avoid her attacks. So countless resets and 10 minutes of insults later, we finally arrive at phase 2, at the top of the tower, with her right in our face. But honestly, this is by far the easiest part of this fight. We can just slash her face until she turns red and run off to the right to avoid her attack. And just a few minutes later, her monthly week of hell begins, and we all plummet down as Lady D finally turns to dust. With presumably her urine sample picked up, we head out of the castle, encounter demented grandma once again, who hands us a key with which we can return to the village, continuing our search for Rose. We run into the merchant once again, and he informs us that we are not actually holding Lady D's drug test sample, but a part of Rose. To get her back, we have to seek out the remaining lords of the village and take their parts. Realizing that there was a child dissecting cult in our backyard the entire time, we head out to put an end to this madness. But first, we become every vegan's worst nightmare, as we eradicate the entire village's fish, chicken and pig population. Here I also decide to figure out how strict the rules for Knives Out really are. To fully satisfy Ethan's urge for slaughtering animals, we need to take out this bird, but doing so with the knife is impossible. So we needed a different approach. It turns out as long as we do not damage enemies with anything besides the knife, we are free to use the gun whenever we want. In hindsight, that might have made the Bella fight a lot easier. Oh well, with us now on Peter's hit list, we get almost beaten to death by one of the enforcers. After cracking the most secure lock known to man, we grab the crank, and by just sprinting through and spamming interact, we can lift the tractor before getting assaulted by the rest of these mouth breathers. We sprint past the rest of the local population and just barely make it to the roof, where we promptly commit some more animal abuse. By jumping through the roof, we can upgrade our key before we get put on life support once again and head back to the merchant. Seeing as he feels left out by being completely useless to us for this run, he decided to open up a food stand, which is where our collected spoils come in handy, as he can cook us upgrades that increase our HP or reduce the damage taken while blocking, and most importantly, top off our delicate health bar. And now we finally head to House Beneviento. This place gives me the creeps. But after losing all our weapons, fiddling around a wooden replica of our murdered wife, and fleeing this advertisement of why abortion should be legal, we make it back upstairs where we murder the doll responsible for all this fuckery, which somehow also kills her ventriloquist. Well, that's unfortunate, but anyway. We pick up another part of Rose, say hi to the merchant once again, and get assaulted by someone's hairy pitbull on the way to the water park. Arriving at said water park, I felt disappointed. I mean, I didn't expect Atlantis Aquaventure, but this was just sad. By heading to the basement, we can get our hands on the next piece of Rose, which angers what I can only assume is how French bulldogs will look like in 20 years. Who traps us in this shithole? We steal a boat key and run off before the local gathering of child molesters discover us. Continuing our favorite pastime of hunting endangered species to extinction, we run into Chris Redfield, world-renowned steroid abuser and Peter Thiel's #1 research subject for immortality. We just want to know how the fuck Rose ended up dissected in 4 piss jars after he kidnapped her, but no. Before we could find out anything, we get separated by some giant fish monster attack. I mean, seriously, what the fuck is going on here?
That is fucking disgusting.
Continuing this acid trip of a run, we have to escape this hellhole. We murder some more chickens, discover that this entire place is held together by duct tape and prayers, and try out the attractions on display. With another enforced gunshot, we make it past the first hurdle, and after definitely not failing the puzzle, we can retrieve the crank and slide over to the other side to turn the power back on. After draining the pool, we can finally make it out of here, or so I thought. However, Moreau had different plans. This disgusting looking abomination has 26,000 HP. So this is going to take a while. But pretty much immediately I discovered a strategy. By just slashing his face twice and running away, he will lunge forward, trying to eat us. But as long as we can get far enough away from him, we can repeat this cycle indefinitely, looping him around the arena. He sometimes gets stuck in certain places which might look promising, but unfortunately no. He just gets unstuck randomly, resulting in our premature death, except for this spot right here. By looping him all the way around the arena to this spot, we can get him stuck here permanently. And by carefully attacking at the right timing, we get free damage in without putting ourselves in danger. Eventually though, he'll get bored and jump up on the roof, vomiting everywhere, which can easily be avoided by taking shelter in multiple parts of the arena. And here I discovered another useful strategy. When he comes back down from his vomiting session, we can get up close and personal to his right leg and swing away, increasing our damage by a ton. He will break free eventually, or at least he did every single time I tried this, but then we can just reinitiate the loop we did at the start until after 15 mind-numbingly boring minutes, he finally explodes like a balloon filled with shit. After grabbing our next key upgrade, we get contacted by Heisenberg, telling us he left us a present inside the stronghold, past the gate in the village. We just have to get it ourselves. How nice of him, and I mean, how hard could it be to get in there? Heisenberg was also kind enough enough to put up some signs so even game journalists can beat the game. But we took a little detour. With the crank acquired, we could cleanse some more chickens of their sins, meet up with the merchant once again, eager to try his culinary sensations, even if the hygiene on display was concerning. With our health topped up and our blocking power maxed out, we head towards the stronghold. At least eventually, as we decided to murder the remaining animal population in the village. The stronghold was a test of patience, with previously unseen amounts of enemies ready to devour Ethan's moldy remains. Getting through the gate without getting hit was a challenge, and considering I had to reset here 35 times, it might as well have been impossible. After a miracle that can only be described as Jesus Christ himself descending from heaven to bless this run, we finally made it inside. But it's not over yet. If you manage to make it past this guy without slipping on the floor covered in olive oil and without getting your neck kissed without your consent, you get to this shit, which for some reason you can just run past. That actually wasn't so bad. But this upcoming section caused me mental distress unlike anything I have ever experienced. Urias, our friend from the village siege, is back, and this time he means business. Figuring out phase 1 was the first hurdle, because standing in the wrong spot leads to us getting crushed or our face reconstructed against our will. Trying to run past him to avoid attacks was inconsistent at best and downright rage-inducing at worst. However, as we have learned in previous fights, the AI in this game is not exactly the brightest. So by standing behind him after he jumps down, we can attack him from the back, and if we turn with him when he starts his attack, we can repeat this, causing him to get stuck in a loop, at least until he says fuck you and just breaks out of it, resulting in a reset. If we can keep the loop going for a while and then run off to bait him to grab one of these pillars, we can get an insane amount of damage in before phase 2 starts. And you might be thinking, this doesn't sound so bad. What is he talking about? But phase 2 is where the shit show truly begins. Urias climbs back up and calls in his gang of sex offenders, which in turn join our BDSM session down here. A single hit puts us in the danger zone, making the fight impossible to win without healing. Fighting them both off without getting hit while keeping an eye on Urias and then reinitiating the loop was just too much for my unmedicated brain. You'll probably think then, just heal, are you stupid? To which I have to say yes, but we can't heal here. After we were forced to use a heal during the Bella fight, we only have 3 more left. And some of the upcoming parts are, let's just say, bullshit. So we need a different strategy. Fortunately, Urias doesn't take care of his friends very well. His attacks can also damage our Lycan abusers. Now we just need him to kill both of them without getting hit. How hard could that be? After dying over and over and over again, I was about to give up. But then it finally happened. By tucking ourselves into this corner when he calls for reinforcements, there's a higher chance of getting the result we want. Or at least that's what I gaslit myself into believing. After he jumped down, I could not believe my eyes. Both Lycans got crushed, and he was picking up the pillar. The perfect attack to reinitiate the loop. This is it. But there's one final problem. This wasn't the first time I made it this far. If we mess up in any way and he breaks out of the loop, we are fucked. Because even if we avoid his hits, he will call in another round of goons, and this time there will be 4 of them. So yeah, we had to focus like never before. With an amount of Adderall consumed that should send you straight to the ER, we start slashing, and after what felt like months, we almost choked the fight last second, but with a final hit, Urias falls. That dopamine rush I felt was certainly going to cause a stroke. But more importantly, how are we doing on time? With only 1 hour and 20 minutes left, I was concerned. Do we even have enough time to finish in under 3 hours? With anxiety levels on the rise, we collect the final part of Rose, and after the most unnecessary boat ride of all time, we finally get to taste fresh air again. With no time to lose, we insert all of Rose's body parts into the altar to open the path to Heisenberg's Amazon warehouse. I mean, I thought we were here to get Rose back, but whatever. The state of this place was a lawsuit waiting to happen. Our job interview with the big man himself brought up more questions than answers. How would working here bring back Rose? And why was our murder spree essential for the growth of the business? In hindsight, questioning Heisenberg's stance on workers' rights was maybe not the best idea, as we get dropped down into the gulag. Running past the horrors down here was the only option, as we were getting chased down by God knows what. After taking the emergency slide down to the basement and slipping past the congregation of crackheads, we reached the heart of the facility. Now we just need to find a way out of here. So we surprise the shift workers with some much needed nap time, sprint past the furnace room to collect the relief mold. And now is a good time to talk about 30 FPS tech. By lowering our FPS to 30 and turning the game into a PowerPoint presentation, we get to slip past enemies that we couldn't get past on higher FPS. Because lower FPS equals less frames for collision. We've used this trick a couple of times throughout the run to make our life easier, but the reason I mention it now is because it's more or less essential to get through the factory without having an aneurysm. And maybe because I forgot to mention it earlier. We insert the mold, run off to hide from the monsters, return to the room to grab the relief, and press on to whatever the fuck this room is supposed to be. We manage to sprint through without any incidents, at least eventually, grab the cock mold, repeat our dance with the metal demon once again, and get the power back up and running. After getting my asshole torn open more times than I can count at this door, we finally make it through, just to get turned into human salami immediately. The key to this room is to turn left right away. Switch on the slideshow filter and pray to Jesus these mouth breathers let us pass, getting away unharmed, mostly. Pushing forward, we reach our next enforced gun usage, as we have to shoot these red glowing parts to shut down the machine. For our sins, we promptly get our internal organs turned external. After recovering from the stroke I had climbing up the ladder, we have our next required gunshot to take out the ventilation fan. And finally, we reach Heisenberg's quarters, where we grab the key mold. After calling the elevator, we see the merchant somehow manage to teleport his oversized caboose in here. Returning to the ground floor, the newly unleashed horrors here somehow posed no threat, and by just letting them finish their spasms, we can just walk right past them to insert the key mold, and after dancing around the room for a bit, we can grab the finished key, let the big guy here just walk past us, but then we ran into this guy. Getting past him was impossible, even on 30 FPS, until I remembered to stop being an idiot and just waiting for him to come out and walk around him. We devoured our final diarrhea waiting to happen, and reaching Heisenberg's door, there was one more obstacle between us and freedom. Stern, our meat slicer from earlier. This fight was one of the reasons I avoided using healing items as much as possible, but we'll get to that very soon. The first problem was figuring out how to even hit him in the first place, as our knife swings seemed to only register once in a blue moon, and greeting for that dopamine hit quickly sent us back right to the start of the fight. After some experimentation, I found out that performing the stab attack worked way more consistently, so the plan was bait Sturm into opening up the room while getting in as many stabs in his gaping weak spot as possible. Eventually he will catch on fire, stumbling around the room, spewing fire everywhere. So just like me on a Friday night, except maybe for the last part. This, however, gives us a window to give him the London experience. There was just one problem. The floor is now lava, and that's the reason I was saving our heals, as there was just way too much bullshit that could happen here. After he calmed down, we can repeat the same strategy as before until we reach the final phase, where Stern stays ablaze. But here I made a discovery that would lead to me questioning my entire existence. Running through the fire does negligible amounts of damage, meaning we could have used a heal during the Urias fight, potentially saving us hours, and more importantly, my sanity. If I wanted to feel like a disappointment, I'd have dinner with my parents, but now it seems like I can add playing Resident Evil Village to that list as well. With mental health levels on a decline, we finish off Sturm without using any healing items and finally reach the exit, only for Heisenberg to put us right back where we started. During all of that commotion, Chris managed to sneak in here. Finally, we might get some answers, but no, at least not yet. He promises us to explain everything, but first we need to take care of Heisenberg and destroy this place. Conveniently, he brought his mini-tank, so while he commits acts of terrorism, we take on Heisenberg. Before starting this run, I was terrified of this fight, but fortunately using the tank's guns does not count against the Knives Out achievement, meaning we can just blast Heisenberg back to the Stone Ages. A fat man to his face throws us out of our freedom supplier, meaning we have to take on a giant metal monster with something regular people use to cut cheese. However, after running past his opening attack, we can just tuck up right against his right side and swing away, turning with him constantly until he loses his patience by trying to open a wormhole, which we can thankfully stop by launching one final rocket into him to win the fight on our first try. Finally, we should get our answers and get Rose back. But in a surprise turn of events, Mother Miranda shows up to rip out Ethan's heart. In a personality change so drastic our disdain for boulders reach astronomic levels, we are now in control of Chris, who finally shed some light on this mystery. Mia died back in Louisiana at the baker's house through Ethan's hands. Plagued by guilt, he started drinking, slowly letting the infection take over, leading to his move to Europe, for healthcare reasons. Rose was never born. It was just a fiction of his imagination, his favorite toy he bought during his trip to Japan. He was living a life of complete denial, an opportunity Wesker couldn't pass up, indoctrinating Ethan, waiting for the right time to gain complete control over the Mega Mycete. Ethan never saw Chris again after leaving the Baker's estate. The Four Lords, they were the guardians of the Mega Mycete, keeping its power in check, an elaborate ruse set up by Wesker to take them out. Ethan murdered Ada's Eastern European cousin, some eccentric lady who liked Kermit a bit too much, some dude whose streaming career never really took off, and an egomaniac who abused and experimented on his staff. Okay, maybe he did deserve to die. With them gone, Wesker can finally harness the power he desires, unless we stop him. Adhering to local gun control laws, Chris only brought his trusty knife. The local homeless population was sent into a frenzy by the Mega Mycete, resulting in us getting assaulted multiple times. But by lowering our FPS to 30 once again, we can slip past the welcoming committee without taking too much damage. However, it won't be that easy in the next section. The Lycans gathered for a climate protest, blocking off the entire road. Running through here without getting violently dismembered is basically impossible, even with our 30 FPS trick. Fighting them off individually takes way too long and we are running out of time. And that's why we saved up on our healing items, because by just using a single heal, we can make it through here with ease. But I wanted to try getting through here without healing one final time. Somehow the stars aligned and we reached the cutscene trigger with 1 HP remaining, meaning we still got 3 heals left for the final 2 boss fights. Bombing our way forward was no problem at all. We literally just ran around the house in a circle. Making our way underground, we encounter Urias's big brother. And after what we went through in the stronghold, you'd think this must be the hardest fight in the entire game. But what if I told you it's by far the easiest, at least in terms of just fighting the boss. In a regular playthrough, you just nuke him from orbit, but unfortunately this was not allowed according to the rules of Knives Out. So we have to defeat him with only the knife, by just crouching next to his right leg and swinging away, which coincidentally also avoids all of his attacks, at least almost always, but that's what we got heals for, right? The problem here is that this guy has 75,000 HP, meaning this fight takes literal ages. Making mistakes and dying was the perfect recipe for an aneurysm. And so we start our arthritis speedrun any percent. With brain functionality at an all-time low, nearly dying from boredom, after 20 minutes, Uriah's tooth finally crumbles and we head deeper into the cave, discovering the Mega Mice seed, rigging it with explosives to stop Wesker once and for all. In the meantime though, Ethan, literally too angry to die, informs the merchant that he's not yet ready to be turned into sausages. We get dropped off at the altar, ready for a duel to the death, but it turns out Mother Miranda is not who we thought she was. Wesker was Miranda all along, and with the power of the Mega Mice seed, he turns into his ultimate form, ready to crush us. But surprisingly, after figuring out that you can just run around most attacks, phase 1 turns into a complete cakewalk. In the second phase, he turns into Spider-Man, and besides some bullshit hitboxes, the walk around his attack strategy works like a charm here as well. The flying phase of the fight was the trickiest to get down, as finding an attack window without getting hit was a nightmare. But by crouching in front of him after he does his dive attack, we get a huge window of opportunity to do damage. After dealing enough damage, he'll summon a gigantic ball of energy that unfortunately we literally can't avoid, which is why it was basically mandatory to save at least one heal for this fight. This leads to that darkness phase where, surprise, we can just walk around his attacks again. We've reached the final phase, and up until now this fight was super easy, but from now on he can switch between all the previous phases at will, which makes finding an attack window way more risky and difficult. Getting hit after using up our final heal means we have to reset, as we are too slow to avoid any of the attacks. This fight required an intense amount of focus to not get hit by any random bullshit. And after 25 resets and 18 whole minutes later of not blinking, we are forced to finish off Wesker with our gun, dissolving him into literal shit. It's finally over. But when Ethan spots the anime plushie, everything comes back to him. Mia, Wesker, his murder spree of the entire village. Knowing the truth triggers an existential crisis. As he limps away, thoughts racing, he meets Chris, takes the detonator off of him, and runs off to end this nightmare once and for all. The world was safe again, but at what cost? An entire village gone. A traumatized man overcoming his demons, but unable to handle the truth. All of that just to stop one man. And did we truly stop him?
All according to plan.
Now it's official, not only do I come in early in the bedroom, but also in Resident Evil Village. With less than 3 minutes to go, we really cut it close. But there you have it, Resident Evil Village on Village of Shadows difficulty in under 3 hours while using 4 healing items with only the knife. Was it worth it? Absolutely fucking not.